In 1990, Total Recall exploded onto screens, with mind-bending twists, brutal action, and one of the most unforgettable versions of Mars ever put on film. Directed by Paul Verhoeven and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, the movie didn't just push boundaries, it shattered them. But what makes Total Recall truly legendary isn't just the story about memory implants and identity, it's how the movie was made. Almost everything you see was real, built, sculpted, engineered, and operated by teams of artists and technicians working just out of frame. No digital shortcuts, no modern motion capture, just groundbreaking practical effects that still hold up more than 3 decades later. So in today's video, we're diving deep into the behind-the-scenes secrets of Total Recall and uncovering how this sci-fi classic pulled off some of the most ambitious practical effects ever attempted. When Douglas Quaid realizes his memories have been tampered with, and he's suddenly being hunted, he escapes into a futuristic automated taxi known as Johnny Cab. The sequence plays out as chaotic and darkly comedic, especially when Quaid loses patience, rips the robotic driver from its seat, and takes control of the vehicle himself. But behind the camera, this scene was a masterclass in practical animatronics. The Johnny Cab robot was designed by legendary special makeup and effects artist Rob Bottin, who was known for pushing mechanical effects to extreme realism. Director Paul Verhoeven didn't want the robot to look sleek or futuristic in a polished way. Instead, he envisioned something slightly outdated, like a machine that had been in service for years and treated roughly by passengers. That's why Johnny Cab has a retro 1950s gas station attendant appearance, complete with a stiff plastic smile and awkward facial expressions that make him feel unintentionally funny. The robot's face was sculpted from a live cast of actor Robert Picardo, who also provided the character's voice. That combination gave Johnny Cab a strangely human personality, making the scene even more memorable. Most importantly, the robot was not CGI. In 1990, digital effects weren't advanced enough for something this detailed. Instead, 3 separate physical versions were built. One was a fully detailed animatronic model used for close-up shots, equipped with mechanical controlled eyes, mouth, and even tongue movements. A second, lighter, rip-out version was designed specifically so Schwarzenegger could physically tear it from the dashboard. The third was a simplified damage version used for crash and chaos moments. When Quaid violently pulls the robot from its seat, he's actually interacting with a specially engineered breakaway prop designed to come apart safely while still looking completely real on camera. That physical interaction is what gives the scene its weight and authenticity, because everything happening was physically there on set. When Quaid reaches the Martian rebel hideout and meets the supposed leader, the film delivers one of its most shocking reveals. The man named George lifts his shirt, and from his abdomen emerged Quato, a small mutant living inside his body. Even decades later, the moment feels disturbingly real, and that's because it was achieved almost entirely through practical effects. Actor Marshall Bell, who played George, had to wear an enormous prosthetic bodysuit that extended from his neck to his waist. Sculpted directly onto the abdomen area was Quato's upper body, fully detailed and integrated into the design. Applying the suit took hours, as layers of foam latex, animatronic wiring, and mechanical components were carefully fitted together. The finished suit was heavy and restrictive, making long shooting days physically demanding. Quato himself was far from a static prop. Inside the prosthetic were servo motors and cable-controlled mechanisms that allowed the eyes, mouth, and facial muscles to move. Multiple puppeteers operated Quato simultaneously from off-camera, carefully coordinating movements. When Quato speaks, the mouth and lips were manually synced to dialogue to maintain realism. When Quaid enters the underground colony on Mars, the audience is introduced to an entire society of radiation-mutated humans. Faces are partially deformed, skin appears burned or discolored, eyes are uneven, the environment feels toxic and unforgiving. What makes this colony so convincing is that almost every mutant was created using heavy prosthetic makeup and practical effects. Rob Bottin and his team approached each character individually. The process began with detailed life casts, plaster molds taken directly from the actors' faces and bodies. From these molds, foam latex and rubber appliances were sculpted to distort features in unique ways. Each prosthetic piece was glued onto the actor's skin and carefully blended so that the seams disappeared under camera lighting. Depending on complexity, applying a single mutant's makeup could take 4 to 6 hours. Some characters required only facial prosthetics, while others needed full head appliances and body extensions. Reaches the Mars spaceport, he attempts to sneak through security using a robotic disguise. The now iconic fat lady head that repeats the line, 2 weeks. On screen, it's bizarre and hilarious, but when the disguise malfunctions and splits into perfectly shaped rectangular panels to reveal Arnold underneath, the moment becomes one of the most unforgettable transformation shots in sci-fi history. And it was entirely practical. Special effects legend Rob Bottin and his team engineered a fully mechanical animatronic headpiece for this scene. This wasn't just a rubber mask, it was built from fiberglass and reinforced with steel components. Inside were complex hinges, sliding tracks, and mechanical separators designed to split the face into geometric panels on cue. To make this disguise look believable, actress Priscilla Allen was cast to provide the body type reference. But because Arnold's head had to physically fit inside the structure, along with the mechanical splitting system, the internal mold had to be redesigned multiple times. The final mask was extremely heavy and bulky. In fact, it was so weighty and mechanically delicate that filming angles had to be carefully planned. The reveal shot was captured primarily from the front because side angles risked exposing the mechanical seams. The splitting mechanism itself wasn't digital or automated by a computer. It was manually triggered. Linear motion bearings and sliding tracks allowed the rectangular sections to separate smoothly. An off-camera operator activated the system at precisely the right moment. And here's the kicker. The transformation had to work in a single take. Resetting the mask was complicated and time-consuming, so timing between performance, camera, and mechanics had to be flawless. In an era when CGI transformations were nearly impossible, this scene delivered a perfectly executed mechanical performance. Part engineering, part acting, part timing. That's why the 2 weeks moment remains such a pop culture staple. It happened physically in front of the camera, not inside a computer. While Total Recall relied heavily on practical effects, the Mars security checkpoint X-ray scene stands out as one of the film's rare and groundbreaking uses of early CGI. When Quato walks through the scanner, and we see his glowing blue skeleton moving in real time, that was cutting-edge technology in 1990. The physical checkpoint set was built at Estudios Churubusco in Mexico City. A large rectangular scanner frame with a dark glass panel was constructed practically. Actors walked behind the glass, and their real movements were filmed normally. But the skeleton? That was added later. The visual effects team, supervised by Tim McGovern, created a digital 3D model of a human skeleton manually. At the time, 3D modeling software was still in its infancy. Every bone had to be carefully molded, shaped, and given transparency and glow effects to simulate an X-ray look. The electric blue-green color palette was chosen specifically to feel futuristic and readable on screen. Matching movement was the biggest challenge. Early motion capture technology wasn't reliable enough, so the team used rotoscoping. That meant studying Arnold's live-action performance frame by frame and manually animating the digital skeleton to replicate every step, arm swing, and head movement. It was painstaking work, but that precision is what makes the scene feel convincing even today. When we watch Total Recall, Mars feels massive, endless red deserts, industrial colonies, oxygen plants, and towering machinery. But none of it was filmed on another planet. Director Paul Verhoeven deliberately minimized reliance on CGI. Instead, the production combined real-world locations, giant physical sets, miniatures, and matte paintings. For exterior desert shots, the crew filmed in Valley of Fire State Park. The natural red sandstone formations already resembled Mars. With added smoke effects, set dressing, and carefully designed lighting, the landscape transformed into an alien world. Wide establishing shots were captured there to ground the film in something physically real. Total Recall represents a unique moment in filmmaking history, right before CGI took over Hollywood. If you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes deep dive and want more stories about how iconic films were actually made, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Let me know in the comments, which classic sci-fi movie should we explore next?